What is the most shocking thing that you have seen happen on live TV? When I was a kid, I was watching the news with my parents, and there was a reporter interviewing people at some kind of outdoor event. As the camera panned across, I noticed a guy sitting in a lawn chair with the biggest set of nuts I've ever seen hanging out of one of the legs of his shorts. It looked like a couple pool balls and a tan sock. I just pointed, but the words wouldn't come out. Eventually, I managed to blurt out, "His balls!" But by then, the camera had passed, and my parents hadn't seen it. They didn't believe me either. This was back during the cable TV days, so no way to rewind it either. Laughed so fucking hard reading this. Can't say I saw it live on TV, only after the fact. I heard the Space Shuttle Columbia break apart over my house when I was little, and our family lived in East Texas. I was playing with a very specific toy at the time that my nieces and nephews still played with as I grew up, and the sound of it still gives me flashbacks to that day. We turned the TV and radio on so quickly because my dad thought it was a gas station explosion. I'm near Houston. I saw the parts of it flying overhead while I was driving to work, thinking, what the fuck is that in the sky? A lot of these comments are probably just gonna be about 9/11. Edit. I decided to go and find some of the old footage, and holy shit, it's actually haunting. Gave me chills the entire time. Wanna talk chills? On September 11th, one was working on the 29th floor of an office building in Midtown Manhattan. One of the corner offices had a nice view of the World Trade Center, and we'd often go in there just to look at the skyline. One of the two people who worked in the corner office shouted out to us that a small plane had accidentally flew into the tower. We all rushed to watch and hoped not too many people would be hurt. As we were watching, we saw the second plane come into view and crash into the other tower. It was the single scariest thing I'd ever seen in my life. My knees literally buckled. You hear people say that, but it actually happened. I remember walking through the streets of Midtown later, looking for a way to get home to Pennsylvania. What I remember was the silence. Everyone was shocked and huddled together, listening to cabbies' radios, trying to find out what was going to happen next. For that one time in my life, everyone was united in fear. The homeless were there along with the businessman and the waitresses and the construction workers, all together as one. I'll never forget it for as long as I live. How's that for chills? Aside from the obvious, Challenger explosion, 9/11, I saw a news anchor get completely trashed on television while covering a parade live. She was slur singing along with the marching bands, baggy sweatpants, boots with the fur, and hitting on her co-anchor Bill. Every day I come into work with a sign that says, "Bill, you're still a hottie." She was absolutely wasted and having the time of her life. It was the single greatest bit of programming that I've ever seen. And how dare they claim it was because of cough syrup? That woman was living her best life, and I've never forgotten it. When I was around 8 or 10 years old, late 80s or early 90s, there was a civil war happening in my country of birth. A real nasty one, with suicide bombers popping off in public places, one TV in the house, and 8 p.m. was nightly news. Never missed it, and the whole family would gather to watch it. This is etched in my mind. A policeman walks the cameraman to a newspaper on the ground and lifts it to show the severed head of the bomber. It was shown on the news. No one freaked out because we had seen worse IRL by that time, aside from some of the obvious ones posted. Nodar Kumarachvili losing control of his sled and slamming into an unpadded concrete column at 100 miles per hour during the 2010 Olympics sticks out to me just based on how many replays of it were aired because he didn't die on impact and was pronounced dead at the hospital later, so networks thought it would be fine to show. I've long held that he didn't die on impact because of Olympic optics, and really they transported a corpse to the hospital. There is just no way that guy didn't die almost instantly. 2011 Fukushima earthquake. Me, my ex, and my mom were watching the 3 a.m. news on TV, and they went live to the earthquake. We watched as the tsunami rolled ashore, and it was so traumatizing watching the aerial of the wave coming in and people driving down the highway or walking not knowing how much danger was approaching. We saw so many people die and get swept away, people trying to warn others, etc. I never saw that footage or view after the original live stream. Also, the people jumping from the Twin Towers as they burned, not much. I would say the fires here in Southern California. You don't see entire neighborhoods, miles and miles go up in flames and have no idea whether you're next, where to go and what to do, if all of a sudden your house, your job, your neighbors, and your kids' schools go up in flames. Thankfully, I wasn't affected, but it was scary to sit there and watch for days and all night. Just having the car packed and ready to bug out to God knows where, not knowing if you'll ever return and be homeless and jobless overnight. The Bay Area earthquake footage of folks driving as bridges buckled and collapsed stayed with me a long, long time. They replayed those folks driving into their death over and over, That was the worst. I was in France on September 11th and didn't hear about it or get to a TV until it was all over. By that time, it was on endless replay, and I couldn't really grasp what I was watching, despite what I was hearing. Seeing it all at once, but then realizing all my friends and family back home had undoubtedly been glued to TV for hours, awaiting the next horror, was hard. The events on January 6th, I was watching the House proceedings live while working on other things on my other monitors. Pretty boring stuff. Then I noticed the disruption on the upper seating area, with protesters interrupting the proceedings. I've been in the House chambers, and I know how much security you have to go through to get in that chamber. Protesters inside the House chambers while in session is unheard of. I knew immediately that something wasn't right. What unfolded in front of my eyes afterwards was one of the most disturbing and sad events I've ever watched. 11 months as a proud American, and seeing the windows of the Capitol broken and the building trampled made me sick to my stomach. Seeing guns drawn inside the House chambers, people scared, people getting shot, it made me nauseous, and I knew I was watching history take place. I was in Germany, December 1989. To January 19, I was there, the Romanian government fell, and the Ceausescus were arrested and executed. We were drinking beer and watching the evening news when they reported what was happening in Romania and showed the Ceausescus in a small house. Then, soldiers let him outside. It was obvious what was going to happen, but I was shocked that they actually showed the executions on TV. When I returned to the US, I talked with people about how wild it was to see people executed on TV. Nobody knew what I was talking about. US TV News reported that it happened but never aired the video. The most shocking thing for me was here in the UK. It was July 2010, and the fugitive Raoul Moat was on the run for going postal. On release from prison, he acquired a shotgun and killed his girlfriend and new partner with it, then gone up to a policeman in his car and shot him point blank in the face. So there had been a countrywide manhunt for a week, because he was an outdoors man and had gone ground in the countryside. It was already surreal because on that day the police had used the famous SAS trainer and TV survivalist Ray Mears to help track him down. Ray had found a tent he'd been sleeping in. It was 10 p.m. at night and the police had Raoul Moat cornered with a shotgun in a river culvert in the northern town of Rothbury. I was watching it live on Sky TV. A banner came up on screen saying breaking news, SKI, then cut live to a completely blind drunk UK football national hero Paul Gascoigne, who was turned up to the incident in the town doing a live statement about how he brought a fishing rod and a bag of fish and chips. Gaza was slurring that Raoul Moat should give himself up and go fishing with him. My brain at the time just crashed. I could not take in what was happening at all. So that was the most shocking. Raoul Moat shot himself half an hour later. He became something of a folk hero in the UK, which was weird because he killed 2 people and blinded the policeman, who killed himself a few years later. Turned out too that Gaza did know Moat a bit, because Moat was a doorman in Newcastle in the days Gaza was in his prime playing days. First one I remember was the assassination of Anwar Sadat. It wasn't live, but they showed the footage unedited as it came in, and there was a guy with his arm pretty much off, among other horrors. Since then, there's been Challenger and 9/11, etc., but that one is still etched in my brain. I'm on the West Coast, so most things that happened in the morning on the East Coast were done with by the time I woke up. Challenger was at 8:30 a.m. 9/11 started at 5:46 a.m., and the towers were down by the time I got into work, where people told me about it. LA riots were in real time. I remember watching as Reginald Denny was dragged from his truck and beaten. That was pretty fucked up. I slept through September 11th as I was working second shift at the time, though even the aftermath for days and days was shocking. I don't really remember Challenger, other than a vague memory. Memory of being funneled into the library at school and watching it on a big old CRT on a cart. Probably the one that sticks out to me is the live coverage of a high-speed chase on Fox News with Shepard Smith that ended with the driver shooting himself on live television. After the car crashed out, you sort of expect the driver to fuck around on foot a little before just giving up. But then he pulls out a gun and does himself in. It's extremely recent, heavy recency bias. NBA Finals 2025, Game 7. Tyrese Halliburton makes a run of the mill move to pass the ball, tears Achilles tendon. So sad. It's a major injury. He had been dealing with a calf strain, but he played in Game 6 and looked relatively well and moved better than you think of someone with a strain in their calf. I guess the pressure of Game 7, the title on the line, he gave it his all. Hit 3 threes in the opening run. Second run, he goes down in clear pain, and we all knew. Didn't need ESPN showing 30,000 times when you can clearly see his calf bounce from rupture moment. It's sad for the player. It's a reminder to listen and take care of your body. Even if you do it the right way, there is still risk, and Tyrese knew the risks. Can't fault him for wanting to win a championship. he'd regret his entire life if he sat out. Personally, based on Game 6, one didn't think it was a calf strain bad enough to rupture the Achilles. I thought it was lower grade, and as Game 7 started, the way it started, brother, did not look hurt or hampered until the catastrophic moment. Very sad. We all knew that game, series, season was a wrap. The day of the Columbine massacre, local TV in Denver was wall-to-wall coverage, as would be expected. Except Fox. Their local affiliate didn't have news yet, so the big three networks, which I kept flipping back and forth between them. On the ABC station, they showed the live footage of the one boy who escaped out the window of the library. A few hours after the two dipshits had offed themselves. At the moment he dropped to the trucks waiting below, the camera cut back to the newscaster in the studio. Bertha Lynn is her name, longtime Denver newscaster for multiple stations, and she winced really hard while watching what they had just cut away from. If anything, that human reaction to what the viewers had been spared seeing live by just seconds drove the whole experience of the news coverage home. A large earthquake hit Christchurch, New Zealand in 2011, and a news outlet did a live raw coverage of the severe damage in the CBD right after the quake. Fallen buildings with people trapped inside, etc. One part of the footage showed a young man that had been hit by a large concrete block, and he had a massive part of his scalp that had come off and was just flapping down, lots of blood, and it was unclear if he was alive or dead, more than likely dead. In the edited coverage that followed after this, they never showed that footage again. I explained these before, but I'll do this again as it keeps getting buried. There are two moments I remember just seen on television. All of a sudden, one, a woman was gunned down on Spanish television. It turned out she was the ex-wife of the shooter, who blamed her for the role in his daughter's death. The man was arrested and has been sentenced to life. The footage was even seen on Bowling for Columbine. The second one was the Waco siege, also on Spanish television. When that fire started, the feed caught off, but you could still hear people talking about it. You knew something was up when the Spanish channel cut off the feed because they often give you the uncensored version of what was going on. The death of Greg Moore at Fontana Speedway in 1999. I was watching on TV and they showed a replay of the crash where it was clear that he'd been thrown around so hard that he must have taken fatal head and neck damage. I think they only showed the replay once before they realized that it was serious. I was visiting a friend in the Bronx, and they said the weather the next 2 days would be Maverick, DIMO3II, Love NY, Avia 911. I worked for a German company for a global team for 10 years. They asked one time in a training of 50 plus PPI if anyone had ever lived through and saw a terror attack. Other than worldly paint, really took me aback. The ruins smoldered for over a year. I lived about 30 miles out from Manhattan. I was a senior in HS. They said planes would hit the towers, and anyone with family in the city could go. New York is very strict. Should have tipped us off. But M and my two best friends decided to head to a local dead end and smoke a blunt. We hear Tower 1 fell. We all go white and fly in my 1999 Honda Civic 0.5 miles to my parents' house. Mom was strict. She would have beat us all for not being at school at 9 a.m. We ran in my kitchen door just in time to watch, with my mom, Tower 2 fall on a 20-inch TV in my kitchen. She waved us over and we all burst into tears. Not so fun fact. I was in middle school walking to get ice cream and looked up and saw a weird fire in the sky. It was 2 Flight 800. Didn't need TV. Saw that blow up with my own eyes. Did anybody actually see Christine Chubbuck shoot herself on TV live? I know it was aired but never replayed, and it was the 70s, so not really a VCR thing. Anyway, I live in Colorado, and besides the common answer of September 11th things, I was serving in school suspension when the dean's secretary got a phone call and told me there was a shooting at Columbine High School, about 10 miles away from where I went. Listening to that unfold was surreal, and seeing the chopper footage of Patrick Ireland crawl out of the broken window was crazy. But the most shocking thing was a bit later on, when they released stills from the cameras in school of Klebold and Harris walking around the cafeteria with guns in hand. Those pictures were terrifying. I'm old, and my parents watched a lot of news. Iranian hostage crisis, Berlin Wall falling, September 1st 1-1, Bud Dwyer suicide, 11 minutes, and fine mispressed, 7 physical problems. Winning bat, the TV got them, images TV got them all. It's not shocking. Every half an hour, someone's captured, and the cop moves them along. It's just like the show before. The news is just another show with sex and violence. 9/11. I was in 2nd grade. They had us all watching it on TV at school. I had no idea what was happening. Thought it was a tower in my city's downtown on fire or something. Saw the second plane hit, the teachers gasp and say, "We're definitely under attack." And I started crying. Mom picked me up early. I was the first kid picked up. and I remember the teachers wouldn't let me out of the classroom at first. In the car, my mom muttered under her breath, "I don't care what those bitches say, I'm getting my child. They can shove their policies up their ass." Mom was a spitfire, clearly 101. Memories are foggy after that, but I remember the news being on 24/7 in my house for weeks, and every single house in my neighborhood flying the American flag. Every single one.
Thank you for watching. Write comments, put likes. Do not forget to watching other videos.